Panelists from both Turkey and abroad, again with a strong round of applause. First of all, I'd like to invite Mr. Burak Marjan, Altanay Defense and Technology CEO. Welcome. And another panelist, Mr. Aziz Tahiri. He is the Director of Global Accounts, Aerospace, Space Industries at Hexagon. And finally, we have Mr. Famer Engin. He is the Business Development Director at Export Development Canada. Esteemed moderator, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. We have very valuable participants and panelists here. Welcome, one and all. I'd like to begin with an introduction before I hand it over to our panelists. I'm Özgür Alaza. I'm one of the founding partners of Pragma Investment. It's an investment and consultancy company, and in our fields of activity, we are perhaps the most active group in defense and aerospace in Turkey. As you know, in recent years, Turkey has made a great leap in the field of defense and aerospace. A lot of engineering and product development capacity has been created. However, strong products and some successful projects are not enough for the sector to grow sustainably. We also need to add access to the right capital, qualified human resources, export capital, export financing, and the ability to open up to global markets. And sometimes for that you need to establish international partnerships or even buy other companies, purchase some other companies abroad. So within this context, we are talking about strategic capital. This is not a theoretical issue for me. In Pragma, we act both as investors and as advisors, and worked on many different projects in the industry. Perhaps the most well-known is the Piaggio Aerospace purchase by Baykara. And within this project, throughout this process, we wanted the Turkish aerospace industry to grow not on a domestic level, but also to step on the global level and become an international platform. And we observed that. We saw it happen. And in our HMS machinery investments, we focused on quality supply, sensitive production, high quality engineering, and we saw how important all of those things are. And for that reason, in today's panel, we will be focusing on three main questions, which I think will be beneficial. One, in defense and aerospace, how should venture capital be evaluated? Because these are quite different than the dynamics of a normal technology investment. First, the sales cycles are quite long. Second, you need relations with the public industry. There are a lot of long certification processes and hurdles. Therefore, the capital's patience, expertise, and ability to coordinate strategy are very important. Second, how should industrial growth be financed? Because a lot of companies are really strong in engineering and technology in Turkey, but capacity building, machinery investment, human resources, quality infrastructure, and opening up to global markets are among some issues where we are lacking. And finally, export financing and globalization, where do they stand in this ecosystem? For you to be able to reach a certain scale, you have to open up internationally, for which there's the country risk, buyers financing, long-term payment plans, and many other complex issues come to play. In today's discussion, what we mean with capital isn't just about the panel, but as to look at capital as a strategic instrument of growth. So alongside money, it also needs to bring some kind of mentality to the investor or the company. And along with our investors, we can look at it both from an investor's perspective and an industrialist's perspective.
Our objective is in the aviation and the defense sector for the coming future how Turkey can become more corporational and more export focused and more how Turkey can produce more global actors. So I would like to salute you all and welcome you all before we start our panel. And I hope that we are going to have some real, solid and fruitful solution for the sector. Mr. Burak, welcome. I would like to address the first question to you. And when we look at the development story of the Altınay's defense, from engineering to defense technology area, we can see that we can see a measurable company. Or what do you think about the most important? What do you think about what is the most important foothold of the development in this area, technology or another thing? Before I answer your question, I would like to give some brief information about Altınay Defense. It's going back to 1919s, and we were back in time. We were produced more focused on the robotics, and today we are of course differentiating in this manner. For the last 20 years, with the development on the defense sector in Turkish public, we starting from the settlement of the new technological infrastructure and to the product development processes, we have a really huge wing of work. And since May 2024, we have become public. Now 48% of our company is open to the public. Now, in terms of turning into a measurable company, I have been, I can say that I have been working in this company for more than 10 years. I have been in an aspect of this company in both production area, and the human relations area. But I think that on the other hand, sustainability is many of the most important pillars of scalability. Of course, this is not a intermediate level. It is a process starting from technology development and prototype production, and at the end we are talking about the globalization process. As a part of this process, technology development is really matters for us, and with the new technologies, with unexperienced and untried technologies, we are trying to get engaged in many different things. We try to turn these new technologies which are more applicable for our country with the, of course, limited source and production capacity pressure. And it is really challenging for us to continue and move on in this regard in the area of production. Of course, we can do something in this area and make technological developments, but it is important to make and produce and sustain a sustainable infrastructure here. Because if you don't have the competent persons and workers in your company, it is not very possible to proceed in this regard. If you're lucky, you are starting your journey with the competent people, and if you're not such lucky, you are also shouldering the expenses that are caused by the mistakes. Today, we are a team of 700 people, and we have an engineering team of 600 people, and of course it is not something very favorable with regard to the investors, because of course the starting expenses and other things really complex in this regard. Cash flow sometimes really limited, or sometimes at the zero level. In the mediocre level, you have to have some methods to solve these problems. Of course, you're encountering any unpredicted issues while you're on your way. For instance, recently, in the circumstances where we see the war between Russia and Ukraine and the Iranian and Israeli war, we have been encountering new different challenges day by day. So you have to touch upon all of these issues on your way. Of course, you are having your times prolonged more and more, and the strategical timing is becoming more important than before. So if you cannot manage this transition and evolution process, you cannot take this process to another level. The next phase of this process is going from prototype to production. The first thing that I mentioned was, of course, it's a process that you are changing the DNA of the system into something different. Relatively, you can be more flexible in terms of the technologies. Of course, you can change the situation accordingly based on what you need. But we now have so real strict issues, and you are losing the engineering flexibility while you are doing the production here. So in this regard, you have to turn yourself into a different form in this regard. So on the other hand, in order to procure production devices to the infrastructure level, you have to check the quality processes. You have to make the necessary arrangements in this regard. And in terms of the time and in terms of the customers, you are really capable of encountering many other issues if you cannot manage this timing. Recently, thanks to our studies, we have not ended up in such situations, luckily, but on the production side, if you establish these infrastructures in your facility, you can have multipliable and adaptable processes, and you can have a structure which is more adaptable to the situations. At this point, scalability of the production is a really important matter in this regard. So, production capacity and the serial production is based on this process, especially in terms of the defense sector. No matter if you are a line country or no matter you use similar platforms, it can be aerial vehicle or any vessel, you have to have any kind different alignment with the country. I don't mean that you can also you can just have the technological aspects, and so you have to assign new sources for every aspect of these processes. With the strategical capital, with initiating capital, you can provide this, but the sustainability is only possible with the scalability of the production. On the other hand, especially in the global markets, I can say that it brings a technical adaptation process. You cannot think about these issues separately. While we are trying to, when we are trying to develop our works in other geographies, we are encountering these issues. For instance, back in 2021, Let and Capital, initiative company, wanted to be a partner of our company. With the capital that they provided for us, we really had a development in terms of developing new infrastructure systems, and a year later we really had a huge development in this regard, and later, after they gained the requirement, necessary amount they required, they left the capital. And I think on the other hand, you have to be more patient because the tendencies of the investors are always changeable. And as we are a public company, we are always encountering this question. People want to take the gain as fast as possible. The thing that brought our company to these days is the chairmanship of our management, because we are doing a job which requires a huge amount of capital, and in order to reach the happiness, you have to be patient. I need to assure you. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I think I have overexceeded the process. I would like to ask the question. Mr. Aziz, Hexagon is a company working with the customers in many different markets, and it has a chance to observe these customers in many other areas. In terms the new global OEAs and defense companies, in which terms they have the opportunities, traceability, capital advantages, or the delivery safety, in which terms they have some advantages. What do you think about these issues?
Thank you very much for inviting us to this panel. Yes, I guess working in aerospace and defense as a supply chain company. So working in aerospace and defense as a global leader in digital quality, we have observed two important criteria to really, I would say, meet the requirements. If you're familiar with Airbus, it's OTD and OQD, on-time delivery and on-quality delivery. These are typically two important parameters to manage, to be able to be qualified and maintained as a key supplier for the prime contractor worldwide. You know that defense and aerospace systems are very complex, the supply chain is very fragmented, and any missing parts will actually block the manufacturing line and the delivery. Therefore, I think one of the key requirements is really this time management and quality management, and that starts early in the cycles with making sure the planning happens, the predictability tools, the monitoring, the right quality measurement equipments are implemented, and the right processes are implemented.
Teşekkürler. Peki bir devam sorusu sormak istiyorum.
And as for a Turkish production company to be engaged in this area, which level should be overcome? Process control, serviceability, or digital data management? What do Turkish companies should do in order to get into these global level?
So I guess there are different sectors, segments that you can play in. If we talk about aerospace and defense, you have civilian, you have defense, and within defense you even have naval, air, or land. And the requirements and the barrier to entry are quite different. The first one I would mention maybe is ISO 9001. That's the minimum requirements to be able to work with any of the aerospace and defense providers. ISO standard 9001 is really around processes and how you manage your own project management, your risk assessment, your planning, your material management, chemical management, and it has to be, you have to be already certified ISO 9001 to address most of these segments. And then if we're talking about anything that's flying, an aircraft or a flying weapon, a missile, a drone, then you also need EN 9100, which is an aerospace standard. In the US, it's called AS 9100. And it's a very additional certification regarding the traceability and the digital traceability of each single component. So for any component you manufacture, you would have to know precisely which process, which machine, which person, at which time, handle that, to be able to justify for that equipment to be completely compliant. And then I would like to add, so these are two important certifications to want to work with any supplier globally. And I would like to add to that two important, I would call them maybe highways or ways to accelerate your penetration into aerospace and defense. One of them is NatCap certification. So if you have any special process in your capabilities, such as heat treatment, welding, any type of really specific process, you also need to be NatCap certified. So it's a special association which will come audit you and certify you for those specific processes. And you cannot work for any flying vehicle if you don't have NatCap. And the second one, which is quite new, that has been developed by France, Germany, and now it's being extended abroad. It has only 1 year old. It's called Aero Excellence. It's a certification from a group of prime contractors. So all the big names in aerospace and defense have actually contracted to that standard. And you can get qualified, certified once by that group, and then get access to all the prime at once. Meaning that you don't have to have different audits from Thales, Leonardo, Airbus, Boeing, one after another. So in which case you might encounter 5-10 audits per year. With Aero Excellence, you can have only one certification a year, and this applies to all the manufacturers.
Çok teşekkürler. Famer Bey merhaba.
Mr. Famer, hello. In aerospace and defense industry, the export is really different compared to the other sectors, because the customers are mostly public institutions, political, and of course we have long-term payment processes, other risky in other situations like politics and many other aspects. And as a company, what do you think? In order to enhance this process, what should be done? What can be done in this regard? I would like to start with the questions. Are there anyone who have used the financing for the export credit institutions? I don't see many companies here. I hope I'm going to be given more comprehensive answer to your question. When you take a look at the developed countries, it is easier to reach to the credits in these countries. But for the countries like Turkey, the emerging countries, it is really hard to attract these credits, and the credit agencies really matters in these countries, in these emerging countries. On the other hand, in EOCD, for instance, the Turkey ranks the first market globally, and I can say that for our company, Turkey mostly ranks the first, or mostly is among the first 3 countries. And the structure of exit and the financing really matters here. When you look at the EU, the guarantee mechanism is usually deployed. In exits, they don't have their own treasury departments, and in order to gain their financing, they have to work with a bank actually, and these exits have observed some risks like documentation risks, political risks, and other things. And so, in this regard, I hope that new foreign banks will be able to bring new financing credits to our country. So, as a solid example of this situation, I would like to give an example here. We have a really I'm working in a company which is really strong. When you take a look at the company which is located in Turkey, I can say that the banks has a chance to change the risk of these crediting issues. So in this regard, I can say that they can act more easily in our country. EDC is a model for this, for instance, and Exim's, which has their own treasury departments like EGC, can act independently. So they can give new credits to these companies, and they can manage their new finance capitals accordingly. It is really becoming more easy in this regard. And the point that we jump into the situation is like this. The Turkish companies usually see themselves as independent structures. For instance, in order for EDC to be located in a structure, you need to have an investor. At the end of the day, no matter it is a Turkish company who took the credit or not, we have to get that application through Canada or from another place. So in this regard, the two companies in Turkey more analyze the situation in our country better and accordingly act more proactively in this regard. The defense sector is a really different sector for Exim actually. The Turkish defense industry has been really developing rapidly, especially in the defense sector. The export and the credit agencies effect is really going to be huge, and I think this is a more realistic approach. This is a model that we are more proactive, and of course there are some other models that we are proactive, and we have companies that we are working for a long time, or for instance we have Canadian companies that we are really have a trusty, that we really have trusted relationships. And for instance, when you speak about a project to these companies in Canada, you just produce a financing model with a program, and this way we have the chance to support Turkish companies. And we have a counseling team, of course, in this regard. They are trying to find the newest technologies, the best technologies in Canada, and they are trying to procure these technologies to your market. So it is becoming more easy for you to reach to a new market. But as a company, and I can assure you that working with a company like EDC, who has shares in a country like Canada, is more effective for you. And in terms of reputational risks and credits, you have to have a true approach, and otherwise you can really be victim in the process while you are trying to attract the Canadian companies in the process. So of course we have some areas where we are both reactive and proactive. In the defense sector, as you mentioned before, we have a more complex process. The sector is really new for Exim, so the earlier you reached Exims, the better you manage the companies you export. It's going to be a better advantage for your company. This is what I believe. I would like to turn to you, Mr. Burak. In the global market, while you are competing, what are the strongest advantages of Turkish defense companies? Cost, flexibility, product performance, the field experience, or what? What are the Turkish companies' advantages, opportunities? Can you please mention about this? Now, I would like to say that in the market that we are working in, according to the geography that we are targeting, the situation changes. But in general, I would like to of course, I would like to enhance the answer later on. In the forefront of Turkish companies' advantages, I think the reflection of the experience on the area is really important. So for the last 10 months in the African geography, we are trying to spend really huge amount of source and time with the Musiat and the Treasury Ministry, with an organization. We had a visit in these investment institutions. So here the Turkish companies were included in this process. I mean defense and the public companies. We mentioned about how we can make investments in these countries and how we can divide capitals into these countries. When the thing that is expected from this geography is that regarding drone production, vessel production, the production scalability matters, and making it in the fastest way is really an advantage here for our company. And I would like to correct, it was America, not Africa. And of course, in the United States, there are some clusters. We visited them, and they also visited us back. For instance, last week we had a visit from their side. What they mentioned was being fast, scalable, and ammunition is an opportunity. So on the other hand, they are for instance, Europe is trying to organize their companies in order to scale their ammunition production company. When you look at this geography, you can see that they try to find a solution in the Turkish companies, among the Turkish companies. Of course, they need knowledge. Relatively, of course, they have more information than we have. They don't know less than us. So in their point of view, it is less important to make a knowledge export. So when we are talking about the hastiness in the system, slowness in the system, they are trying to make some steps in order to eliminate these problems. On the other hand, when you take a look at the Middle Eastern part, the fast...
There's an expectation for fast financing and supply because the need for information is higher in the Middle East. Because in the Middle East, like countries like the UAE or Saudi Arabia also take Turkey as a role model and attempt to develop their own platforms in some critical fields. So for that, in some critical subsystems, they have need for the development of technology and knowledge because they are also under certain embargoes, some blockades by certain countries, and they also have their own markets where they are effective. So they want to improve themselves and create opportunities for themselves in said markets. So to summarize, all of the parameters we've talked about here are actually some things that are prominent or not in the region where we want to work, but their common feature is something that we achieve really well. We now know that what we've been taught in the past, it doesn't last, and with concrete there are approaches that make it possible to verify and validate the same thing using different methods. So what makes Turkish companies more prominent are alternative solutions, quick implementation of those solutions in the field, and flexibility, by which I mean large and established companies act to specialize their products based on special needs, which is difficult, so they choose not to most of the time. But as Turkish companies, we offer them a very convenient and harmonized solution. Performance I think is not a concept here for Turkish companies because access to technology has globalized. If not you, they can source it from other alternatives. The issue of cost, I'm not saying it's not important, but there is a quote-unquote hygiene or sterility factor compared to the other features that we listed. So flexibility, agility, and speed are the aspects that we need and that make us more prominent. Thank you. Aziz Bey, a similar question to you. You know that in recent years in the defense industry in Turkey, the engineering capability has developed rapidly. From a global client perspective, should Turkey act as a low-cost production center or as a strategic engineering partner? Is Turkey seen as one of those things?
You have moved from being a low cost to being a more strategic supplier. I think now it's about being a strategic partner, and I agree with what my colleague was saying here regarding the cost. Cost is somehow not an issue anymore. I mean, in aerospace and defense, for a long time anyway, cost was always not prevalent to quality and on-time delivery. So if you can deliver on time with the right quality, companies are willing to pay for it. Of course, you have to remain competitive. You're not alone. What I see here reminds me a little bit 10 years ago when I was traveling to China and China was trying to penetrate the market. Of course, cost was very attractive, and quality was still necessary. And I think what the story is telling us is that cost will never be enough. And even today, a lot of low-cost countries have lost their position in the supply chain because the quality was not there. So I think definitely quality needs to be your number one driver. I think for Turkey also to really become a strategic supplier and a strategic partner, you would have to also look at how do you not only build to print, but really engineer and continue to engineer. I think you have demonstrated amazing speed and capability to prototype and to engineer very modern and efficient vehicles and systems. It's really amazing what you can see in the hall here. And I think for now, to really get to the next level, it's about industrialization, it's about stability, it's about industrial grade manufacturing capabilities, and a partner attitude, which means co-investment, being involved early in the design cycles, co-development, and making sure that also with regards to what's going on currently in the world, being able to also manufacture in the countries where your prime contractors are installed, because everybody is trying to get some autonomy and to be able to provide its own defense and manufacturing capabilities, in which case Turkey would have also to play the game in the foreign countries.
Aziz Bey çok teşekkürler. Famer Bey,
Thank you very much, Mr. Tayeri. Now, to make an export opportunity bankable for a company, what is a must? What is necessary? What does it mean? Thank you very much. I think we can answer two questions here, both for project financing and corporate financing, these two dimensions. Project financing, might seem a bit inappropriate for the defense industry, but I think we need to look at the defense industry from a broader perspective, taking into consideration different options. For example, recently on the critical mineral side, both their extraction and processing have brought about important opportunities which can and have been financed in connection to the defense industry. So this is a model. And although I haven't seen any yet, we know that artificial intelligence will also make a lot of difference in this field. And especially with the recently developed models Or, on the coding side, we see that a lot of software companies are using AI in process design and engineering. In all of these fields, artificial intelligence has made itself more and more prominent recently. Therefore, defense companies also seem like they will be using AI more and more intensively as time goes on. And this also this doesn't mean that the companies will keep their sensitive data on the cloud. Especially the huge producer companies might also make huge investments to data centers, at which point project financing, and specifically for Turkey, the export loan financing instruments can make a difference. But the basis we are basing everything on here, in boiled down terms, so to speak, what we look is the offtake side of things. For example, we established a structure or a data center here. So we look at where the computing power goes, what the purchasing guarantees are, or some minerals or processing facilities for critical minerals. So what are the offtake structures? We look at that in detail. And alongside that, the capital strength is also important for us because in project financing, you don't always see what you planned happen in terms of budget. So companies that have this power to add more capital are more valuable for us. As for the corporate financing side of things, all of the work we do in Turkey are unsecured. So we provide the companies here with significant loans without any securities. So for us, this requires a detailed analysis of the balance sheet, and when you work for a loan, the due diligence you do isn't just about the balance sheet analysis. You need to do a very comprehensive study. The payment discipline, the quality of the management of companies are among the many factors that we look into. And specifically to Turkey, perhaps we can talk about the holding group structure, because there are a lot of groups in Turkey. Some of them don't have group or holding in their names, but they're structured as one. And in structure subordination is another field that we look closely into. So like as an institution that provides the loan to a holding, for example, a group, you can go through a lot of problems. For us, being close to the cash flow is quite important, because the companies, the operators, might have a problem in the future, and when that happens, the banks that give them the loans do have the means to prevent the money from going up. So that can make things difficult. On the corporate side, we do the best we can to avoid dominating the balance sheet and be the greatest or one of the greatest institutions that provides loan, but not the only one, as much as possible. So we try to work with similar banks under similar conditions when we give out loans. As for bankability, another important criterion is the ESG side of things. Perhaps we can look more detailed into this. Every single item on the ESG side is very important for us. And Turkish companies should not see this as a burden, instead as an opportunity, because you can act faster, you can understand the dynamics better with foreign financing organizations, and companies who can analyze these conditions better will of course get ahead in the competition. And as I said, the exports loan institution is very important for Turkey. They have a lot of value, and the better you can use these instruments, the better you will be in terms of competitive power. Thank you, Mr. Engin. Now, if you would like, we can receive questions from the audience. And if anybody would like to ask questions to our panelists, the microphones are at the ready. Hello, Takım. I am a journalist, and my question is to Burak. Do you think that in the automotive supply industry, Turkey's success will also be achieved in the defense and aerospace industry in the future? From where I stand, I see defense and aerospace like the automotive momentum that started in the 1990s. And so will Turkey be able to become a brand like the automotive back then? And as a defense company, what is the thing you would need most for this? Is it advanced technology or incentives or a production culture or policy? What could it be? Thank you very much. The automotive industry and the defense aerospace industry's dynamics aren't really that compatible with one another. Until recently, let's say, because these innovative new generation technologies, especially drone technologies, these swarm drone attacks or countermeasures are now on the table. And so production needs to be scaled up. Which is it's a good question, because last week in a meeting we held in another country, we heard that at the heart of Europe's basic strategy, especially on the drone and ammunition side of things, which of course it's a bit unfortunate to be saying this, but it seems that this will keep going high and soaring in the near future. So the success that Germany has in the automotive industry to be achieved in the drone, as in, quality, fast and cost-effective levels, in a sustainable structure, is something they are preparing to shift and transition to. So today, both the certification processes as well as the quality of the product, as well as for the end consumer, when we look at it, they don't seem like very correlated sectors. But I think in the near future, they won't be completely correlated either, but they will be intertwined in certain points. And, unmanned systems are some of these. They are very commonly used in war zones right now, but not just for destruction, by the way. But a lot of use is also being expected for logistical means. So I can answer with a partial yes. With regards to our country, in the currently ongoing platform projects, the greatest problem we face as Turkey is that we are not actually an industrialized society still. There are a lot of critical processes that need to be generated cannot be implemented right, despite the fact that we have the necessary equipment, at least in the defense and aerospace standards, because this is the greatest difference between automotive and defense. We have producers who claim to have the infrastructure already, but are unable to carry out operations in the standards we require. And then there's also the extra development processes that you need to apply. But I think there's going to be a shift from automotive to defense like that. And I think one of the main strategies in organizing this strategy is to use this infrastructure and to spread it all over industry at large, and to implement more technological processes and more proper approaches. Now, in short, I wanted to say that automotive industrialists might change their licenses and transition to defense. We hear that this is already happening. Of course, this increases the flexibility problem, but it could also create an allocation problem. When you say shift, so they are transitioning from automotive to defense manufacturing, basically. The certification processes in the defense industry are actually in the approval of many other organizations, and with individual initiatives, it's not possible to transform institutions. You definitely need a certification process, especially the Presidency of Defense Industry started implementing the ADAP certification at a high level. So your competencies with regards to design, sustainability, and post-sale services are evaluated by a structure. and that structure grades you. There's a grading system, and depending on that, you get positioned on which phases of what projects you can take part in. This is also the same here. So I don't think that transformation is going to be so easy. I don't think it's something that can be achieved legally. Two years would be enough. 2 years would be enough. The AS 9100 certification we got 5-6 years ago for the defense aerospace industry. We'd met some consultancy companies to accelerate the process, and those talks actually extended the process with their flexibility. So we opted not to use such a company and did our own preparation in 6 months and got that certificate. So these aren't things that take years upon years. If we're not talking about civil aviation like Airbus or Boeing and manufacturing critical parts for them, then I think that 2 years is not enough. Thank you very much. When you look at the size today, the defense industry and aviation, aerospace is in everybody's radar. It's not just the OEM of the automotive, but construction companies, textile, people from all over the economy are trying to get involved, but it's not so easy. You have Aziz Bey, the CEO of MSD, and we do work for civil aviation there. But when you say 2 years, just we need 2 years to get a continuing project approved by a client, and it takes 2 more years to actually do the project. It takes an incredible amount of time. But in the automotive OEM industry, there's also another thing, which is that they have a 10% margin, and they couldn't get out of it because there was always something looming over them. But in the defense and aerospace industry, the potential is much higher for Turkey. We produced end products with much higher value added. I think the gentleman had a question. The audio is problematic. Now it's fixed. Prestige Publishing, Kenan Anıl. Due to the region where we are located, right now there is a lot of investment and rapidly developed projects for the defense industry. And due to that reason, it seems like Turkey is a bit ahead of Europe or the US in this sense, also in terms of engineering. Perhaps in the upcoming period, like in the automotive industry, we are the OEM, the backyard of Europe, so to speak. And with regards to this national crisis, there was some stagnation in the automotive industry. And as Hatice just mentioned, defense industry is being developed, though I actually wanted to ask Mr. Marjan. We've known each other for long years, and he has a lot of investments in this industry as Altanay. So due to the region where we are located, could it be that the investments and the projects you are making will have problems in the future? I would also like to ask Mr. Tahiri from Hexagon another question. You're a global company as Hexagon, and both on a product basis and for project development, you work globally. And what's how much benefit does Hexagon provide in light of these developments in the defense and aerospace industry? Let's start with Burak Bey, Mr. Marjan. Well, I think we're going to run into problems if we don't do it. And since our country, since Turkey also thinks that way, we launched a long-term strategy years ago, because unfortunately in the defense industry, when we look at the Middle East, for example, fiscally, financially, with regards to access to money, they are way ahead of us. They're much better than us, but sometimes having the means doesn't allow you to just bring that technology over here. So for that reason, especially in critical technologies, we need to always make investments that will remove our dependence on other countries. And today, in our position as a regional power, one important factor is our leading position in innovative technologies like the drone technologies, and we've always benefited from these investments we've made. And it was not so long ago, just 6-7 years ago, we were unable to launch bombs that we developed from planes that we developed because they didn't give us the keys from the other countries. There was no official blockade or embargo, but there was a series of events that caused that process to be delayed. Today, we developed not just the ammunition, but the system that launches itself as the Turkish defense industry. So this is we're somewhere beyond self-sufficiency in terms of business model. We are a role model to the other countries in the region who have gone through similar processes, and for the transfer and sales of these products, it creates a global market for our company, for our country, where our companies are being invited all over the world to make investments. In the expos and fairs where we go internationally, people pull us aside and invite us to booths to discuss certain topics. This was not the case in the past, so we need this to continue. We need this for our country, for our people. And as I said, the investments that we make here will also be opening different windows for us. And in the defense industry, all applications that are developed are transformed into a commercial product that can be used, or to infrastructure that will be able to use that. And I hope that this answer has been enough. And the second part of the question, Mr. Tahiri. The Turkish defense industry is rapidly growing, and as a global company, what will the contribution of Hexagon be to this, I think was the question.
Before I answer that one, I would like just to make a comment on the cross-industry opportunity, because definitely I will never forget a few weeks before COVID happens, I was presenting the aerospace and defense forecast for the next 10 years, and the growth was huge, double the amount of planes needed and so on. 1 week after that, everything was dead. Aerospace was gonna disappear completely, and everybody was already trying to think what their job was gonna be in the next year. And now here again, aerospace is completely up, and you have to deliver so much. So I think the industries are unpredictable. I think nobody was expecting defense to be that huge. Even a year ago or 2 years ago from what's happening now. So I'm lucky enough to be part of a company that is playing in all industries, and we can play with that, and we can definitely balance out the revenue and the profit based on what's happening in the world. I think cross-industry or going from automotive to defense is definitely a smart move today, but I would not quit automotive. I would rather diversify. For any investor, you need to put your eggs in different baskets. I think that's the same here, and that's also where, from a regional perspective, each region is moving at a different speed. Automotive in Europe is going through a very difficult time, but if you ask the Chinese how was automotive in the last 2 years, they are smiling to you, and they have made huge successes in automotive. So also playing, and we're among the top 2 players, if not the first players globally in laser scanning equipment for all the industries. And that's how we're supporting today the different industries. We've trying to close the skills gap. We don't have enough engineers. We don't have enough people who wants to do inspection by hand and by eyes. I'm sure many of you have kids, and none of them want to be walking around an aircraft or a car, or writing on paper or on an Excel sheet what is the measurement they have done. Everybody wants to move to a very, very digital type of works and jobs and want to make money out of it. And you can only achieve this kind of transition by being a very innovative company, to be ahead of the game, to have your own technology, your own engineering capabilities, and to be among the top 3 players to really remain on safe lands. So I would say for us, Hexagon, really the future is around making sure any component, regardless of industry, is being manufactured with the right quality, with less skilled and experimented people, with equipment that are helping digitalize this the quality control world, and making sure the end product, whether it's a car or an aircraft, is safe to fly or to drive on the road.
Thank you. Çok teşekkürler.
Thank you very much.
Evet.
Yes, I guess that was the last question. Thank you very much for your attendance. But first of all, I would like to say that we had really distinguished guests, so I would like to take applause for them. So all of this experience was shared with us, and they have contributed hugely to Saha 2026. For the commemoration of today, we have some gifts for you. I would like our moderator to present you the gifts for you.
Hemen biz de ana objemizi Sayın Moderatörümüze Özlü Bey'e takdim etmek istiyoruz. Saha 2026 panelistimizin koordinatörü Sayın Suzan Aslan. Ve bir aile fotoğrafımızı alalım. Çok çok teşekkür ediyoruz hepinize, her birinize ve tabii ki sizlere. Önümüzdeki günlerde Saha 2026 kapsamında yine kapsamlı panellerimiz devam edecek. Lütfen takipte kalın.